Hey, in this video I'm going to show you how to make your first web page using the w3.css framework. This goes along with the first assignment that I gave out on w3.css. So to get started, you should open the template file that I gave you in the assignment, and that would be this HTML file right here. I've got a few things set up for you. You'll notice we've got the usual stuff in here, plus I've given you some comments telling you what to do and where. One new thing that you'll notice here is an extra meta element, and this one looks a little bit more complicated than usual. What this element does is it makes sure that your web page will render on different devices properly. In particular, what it does is it deals with pixel density. So sometimes if you don't have this element and you viewed your web page on like a fancy new iPhone with a really high pixel density, a retina screen, right? Your page is going to look like crap unless you put this meta element in there, and that'll fix it basically so that your web page displays the same on all devices. So the first thing you need to do is get the w3.css link element right here. So I'm going to delete that comment so we have room, and I'll type link, and I don't really remember the text of it, to be honest. So I'm going to pop over to W3 Schools. We are in the Learn w3.css tutorials, and this first home lesson shows you the link elements. So remember, in class I talked about there are two different ways to link to the w3.css file. You can link to it off-site. This is the one that's hosted at w3schools.com, or you can download it and link to it off of your own computer. I'm going to go ahead and hit the downloads link and keep a local one. And here's the link to the local one. You just have to two-finger click that and save link as. And you want to make sure to put that into the same folder where you are coding. So I'm going to dump it right in here. This is where my HTML file is. I've already got an old version in there, but I'm going to replace that. And now that's saved. You can see that file right down here. So now the link is the same as a CSS style sheet link, because the w3.css framework is, in fact, a CSS style sheet file. Alright, so there's my link. Now I'm ready to use w3.css. I'm going to make a page about Mount Cleveland. This is going to be really similar to the one that I created as an example for the assignment. So if you're doing this right, then you shouldn't have any CSS style element here. That would be for inline CSS. We shouldn't need to use any CSS at all of our own coding, because w3.css will provide all that to us. Step 1, did you sketch your content out on paper first? Well, yes, I did, but just so that you can see it, I'm going to put my own sketch in the comments, right? I want a header with title. I'm going to do like orange color. Underneath that, I'm going to do an image of Mount Cleveland. Underneath that, I'll have a paragraph about it. And then in the bottom, I'm going to have a footer with my name. And that's the basic outline of my page. Delete this comment here. And let's get started. So first element that I need is the header. Okay. In w3.css, you need to use containers a lot. And the most common container element that you'll see out on the web is the div. Okay, so I could use this div as my header element. Okay. However, it's much better practice to use what are called semantic elements. There are several elements now that just got introduced in HTML5 that work the same way as a div, except they tell you much more about what they do. So for example, my header, I'm going to code that with an actual header element. The header is a div. This is just a div with the name header so that the world knows that this is the header div. Okay. Then your next step is to add this container class, w3 container class, to the header. So looking back at the lessons here, This is in the W3 CSS containers lessons. Containers give things real nice padding. They basically just make everything look right. The spacing gets evened out real nice. You can add it to any of these elements right here. There's the header that I'm using right now. Okay. Inside of that header, I wanted a title. Now, this isn't the same as the title here. This title element is what gets typed up in the tab. My title on the page in the body, that's going to be a heading. So my heading 1, I'm going to say Mount Cleveland, and you'll notice right away that there's padding in there. Watch what happens when I get rid of that class. It goes right up to the edge of the screen, doesn't look as good. Use containers, they're good. I think I'm even going to add a header 2 in here as well. Because Mount Cleveland is in Glacier National Park, Montana. Now I want this to be smaller. Now I could do that by changing the header, but I shouldn't. I'm going to show you that in W3 CSS there are classes that we can use to change the size of the text. So we'll go to fonts, and here we go, font size classes. So I'm going to try large, W3 large as a class, and see what happens there. Class equals W3 large. That looks way better. Easy tweaking of the size right there just by adding a W3 class. Last thing I want is a background color for this header. I don't want it all to be white. So again, I'm going to go over to my lessons, check out the W3 CSS colors lesson. And in here, you can read through, you get a lot of choices. I'm not going to read through all these right now. I'm just going to pick one of these top ones. I kind of like this amber color. It's a light orange. And here's an example where they used it. W3-amber is the name of the class. You'll notice that if you want to use multiple classes, you just hit space after the first class you typed and then type the name of another one. And bada boom, bada bing, that's fixed up. So there, I've got a header. Done with that part. Next is my image. I'm going to put the image in a container to show you what happens when I do, and show you that you don't always want containers on your elements. So here's an image. I think cleveland.jpg is the one I want. Yes, it is. Boom, Alt. Okay, so I just entered that in. Now a couple things we need to fix here. Number one, as I resize the page, the image doesn't resize, and that's a problem. Number two, you see this white bar here? That's the padding I was talking about, and that is there because the image is inside of a container. Okay, so what if I get rid of that container? Now the image goes right up to the edge of the screen, and that's what I want. So containers create padding. Containers create space inside of themselves, so you don't always want that. Okay, now I got to deal with the size, right? Why isn't it resizing properly? Couple ways you can deal with that. The purely W3 CSS way to deal with that would be to go to the tutorials and look for images. I'm going to search for responsive. There it is, responsive images. An image can be set to automatically resize itself. That's what I want, and there's my class. Class equals W3 image. Okay, let's try that. Boom, resizing image. Okay, so that's great news. That's working out really well. One thing to notice about this, though, be careful again, is this image will only go as big as its original file. That's what the W3 image class does. Okay. I want it to get as big as possible. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cheat and use an inline style and just say width 100% no matter what. Now it'll scale even bigger than the original image size if need be, and that still looks pretty good, so I'm okay with that. Okay, so I got my image. Next is a paragraph. That should go again in a container. You could use a div. I'm going to use, how about article? Article is another one of those special divs. There's my container class, and inside of there I'll put a paragraph. And I don't actually want to write it in front of you, so I'll just copy and paste a bunch. Okay. Automatic spacing, again, provided to you by w3.css. The font is automatically changed to something that looks good as well, so all you got to do is add that class. Last thing I needed was the footer. I could use a div again, but once again, footer is a better choice. I'm going to use the w3 container class again, and I want this to be orange as well, so, or amber rather, so I'm going to use that w3 amber class down here. Oop, I cheated. I need either a paragraph or a heading. Let's use, I don't know what's the best choice. Let's just use a paragraph. And you know what? I want to right align that. So again, I'm going to go back to my CSS font. Where did they go? Right here. Alignment isn't in there. Let's check w3 CSS text. Text alignment right away, the first one. w3 right align. Class equals w3 right align. Done. And that's it. Okay, pretty good looking page. Now that I've made it, I don't really like my orange anymore, but I don't want to deal with it anymore. And this pretty much does it for your assignment. Happy coding.